Holocaust, the largest Holocaust in history, where trillions of animals are subjected to slavery, rape, torture, abuse and murder. And if you think that's a sham, then you must be a psychopath.
A lot of people are going to it for nutritional reasons and being told that this is the most, the healthiest diet, that they should eschew meat because it's harmful.
Are they treated well in a slaughterhouse?
Yeah, there's no nice way to kill anything.
How can you justify, again, I want to ask this question, enslaving innocent animals, chopping their head off inside of slaughterhouses, raping them, torturing them? How can you justify that? How do you justify forcibly breeding animals into existence, enslaving them, and then sending them to a slaughterhouse that fraction their natural lifespan?
Who is eating more food? Do you know the answer or not?
No, why does it matter?
What does it matter?
I'm asking you a question. This is a debate and I'm asking you a question and you failed to answer pretty much any of our questions.
If a vegan diet did sustain optimally in the best way, say if it had the vitamin B12 at an active level, would you be a vegan?
So the thing is that the only reason I eat the way I eat is because biologically this is our optimal diet and nutrition. That's what I care about, is optimal health.
And if there was no cruelty or suffering, would you guys eat meat?
How can there not be cruelty or suffering to eat someone's body?
Would you sit on the same table as Anthony and share a meal with him if he was eating a steak and you were eating?
Absolutely not. I will not sit down with a dead murder victim in front of me.
Would you sit down in front of somebody eating a human body?
I'd be curious. I'd be there with the same camera setup I have, and I'd be questioning them. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Hammad Chowdhury's Debates. And tonight we've got a very special conversation for a long argument that's been going on for eons. Vegans versus carnivores. What diet should you have? On the right, we have Dr. Anthony Chafee and Dr. Sanjeev. On the left, we have the vegans, Tash Peterson and Jack Higgs. Straight off the bat, how we're going to start is we're going to start with 60-second rounds. You have to defend the statement and you have to support the statement. And then after that, we'll go into a free roll. Let's go. Veganism is a sham. Defend the statement. 60 seconds.
You can start.
Me?
Yeah, you can start. Oh, well, okay, I'll just say that veganism is far from being a sham. It's literally an ethical stance against the exploitation of sentient beings, non-human animals. Most people would be against the exploitation and abuse of animals. So literally vegans are just people that are putting that into action. How is that a sham? Protecting animals, most people would protect dogs and cats, other animals they care for. We're just extending that to all animals because we don't see a relevant difference to allow us to abuse some, but not others.
Tash?
Yeah, vegans simply don't participate in the animal holocaust, the largest holocaust in history, where trillions of animals are subjected to slavery, rape, torture, abuse and murder. And if you think that's a sham, then you must be a psychopath.
60 seconds.
So look, I don't think it's a sham. I think people make these different decisions for very different reasons and very meaningful reasons. I don't think that they are trying to scam anybody. I think that their good intentions are being manipulated by others who may have ulterior motives, want to push a product, want to sell something to them, and they become enamored with this ideology because of that. I don't think that caring about animals is a bad thing. I don't think that that's a sham at all. I think that, but people go to veganism for many different reasons. A lot of people are going to it for nutritional reasons and being told that this is the most, the healthiest diet, that they should eschew meat because it's harmful. And that's my main point. I don't want everyone to go carnivore. I just think people should understand that meat isn't unhealthy. As a doctor, I care about my patients' health first and foremost, and so I want to make sure that they're eating healthy, and so that's my main thing. I think that people that are going vegan for nutritional reasons have been fooled. And I think that there are different sorts of industries that profit by this. Kellogg's and the Kelpicals and the PepsiCos of the world, they spend the large majority of money on nutritional research that supports a plant-based diet because they know that when we can go plant-based, they go processed food plant-based, they don't go fruits and vegetables made from their own garden. And I think that that's a major drive at the moment. So I think that is the issue that I have.
60 seconds.
That people do this because they care about animals.
Okay. Well, I'll let you guys just take a free roll.
Yeah. So just kind of like based on what we're just discussing there?
Just discuss his points and have any rebuttals.
I mean, Yeah, well, yeah, to make it clear, like veganism isn't a diet. Like a plant-based diet that's a diet. So veganism is that initial philosophy, is that ethical stance against the exploitation of animals. And I guess I would like to know, would you say that you are against the exploitation of non-human animals?
So the thing is, I think you do vote with your pocketbook, and there are regeneratively raised, grass-fed, and finished animals that are treated very well. I've been to some of these farms, and the animals are just out.
Are they treated well in a slaughterhouse?
Nothing's going to be treated well in a slaughterhouse.
Absolutely.
However, there's no nice way to kill anything, but there are, or anyone.
Yeah.
But there's no nice way to do that. However, you can do it in as instant as possible.
So you would admit that it's unethical to kill someone, especially when there's no reason to be doing that at all? In the case of non-human animals,
well, you'll have to qualify that state. You have to give a situation. The thing is that say what is ethical? If you want to go back to the Aristotelian definition of ethics, it's living within one's character. The character of a wolf. What is ethical for a wolf is to be as a wolf is, and so he said that humans is to reason, and our nature has been for millions of years eating meat. We need meat to survive.
Well, I guess you could put it differently. You could say, is it okay to kill someone for food if you don't have to be eating them in the first place? Like, is it okay for me to kill you? Is that ethical, knowing that I don't have to? Would you agree with that or not?
So the thing is, though, is that it's not ethical to subject people to substandard nutrition and have their bodies and brains and neurological systems not developed properly. Have billions of people suffering with chronic disease, early dementia, Alzheimer's, cancer, Parkinson's, all these other sorts of things that actually come from an inferior diet.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So the thing is that we in the West, we do have a bit better of a position where we can get nutrients from the supplements and other sort of things as well. But that's sort of a privileged position, or other places around the world, and rural parts of Africa and Asia, India, and so on. They don't have that option. So malnutrition is plaguing places like India and Africa.
Yeah,
and
we're referring to people that have access to an exclusively plant-based diet. And in this case, if we're talking about veganism, not just the plant-based diet exclusively, if we're talking about veganism, yeah, there would be reason to take a B12 supplement. Now, the reason we would say that is because it is essential. Other than that, you can get your nutrients elsewhere. It may be vitamin D3, but we can get it from the sun, depending on where you're on the world. But even then, these are very inexpensive, easy things to be doing. If you have access to a adequately nutritious vegan diet, which you absolutely can, we can thrive on a vegan diet if it's done well. So I'm going to agree with you and say if it's done poorly, as with any diet, yeah, we shouldn't be recommending that for anyone. But we are recommending a healthy plant-based diet. Knowing that, what justification can you have to send and force animals into slaughterhouses and enslave them their entire life? I mean, you wouldn't do the same for humans, can I assume? You wouldn't say that it's okay to enslave and send humans into a slaughterhouse. So why are you justifying that, knowing that you can actually thrive on an adequately nutritious vegan diet?
I think I would disagree with the premise that you can thrive on an adequately designed.
How so?
Yeah, so it's not just B12 we're missing, it's not just D3, there are many micronutrients. I mean, first of all, carnitine is called a non-essential amino acid. However, that only applies to 70% of the population. Fully 1/3 of humanity cannot make an adequate amount of carnitine. It does not exist in plants. You have to get that from meat or supplements, things like that. So that's a very important amino acid that has to do with mitochondrial function in brain and nervous system. So Texas A&M actually showed that this is a major cause of autism, because children that don't have an adequate supply of carnitine have inadequate mitochondria in their brain, they develop autism. Autism was 1 in 10,000 in 1970, and now it's 1 in 34, and 1 in 22 males. That's a misdevelopment of the brain and the nervous system, amounting to permanent detrimental neurological dysfunction, brain damage. And so that, I think, is immoral. That, I think, is unethical to subject people to that. So it's not just those nutrients. And the thing is also, it's not just about nutrients, because my main message to people is that, yes, we want all these nutrients, and yes, you can supplement up to a certain point, but there are a lot of micronutrients that don't necessarily have names for yet, and that you don't necessarily know that they're essential, that you don't basically even know you need to cover. That's first of all. But second of all, plants aren't completely benign. They don't just have nutrients. They have other things, other sorts of defense chemicals. They're living things. They like to say living things, and so they defend themselves just like animals do. They're just in a different way. They're stationary. They can't run away or fight back. so they have to have different means. They make nearly 1 million different defensive chemicals to stop animals and insects from
And that's
eating.
why we eat edible plant foods, not toxic ones.
Sure. So the thing is that inedible ones are so toxic that they'll kill you or make you very sick very
Right,
quickly.
I agree with that.
But the ones that are edible, that doesn't mean that they don't have any toxins. It just means we have a better capability and capacity for detoxifying them. But then we cook things, we ferment things, we soak them in lye and all these sorts of things to lower the toxic load.
Certain ones, yeah, absolutely.
But that doesn't eliminate them all the way. There's a lot of things with cyanogenic glycosides. This is a major, major problem around the world. Cassava is the primary caloric source for 750 million people in the tropics. It's the third most important calorie source in all of the tropics. And so these are very poor people that rely on this sort of food. There's a lot of cyanide in there, and even when treated properly and reduces this cyanide load, you can still get sublethal but clinically significant exposure to cyanide. Hydrogen cyanide is toxic to all life, and it's sort of like a kill switch in the plant. When you sort of chew it, macerate it, or blend it, it will release two chemicals that will join.
And that's why we don't eat cyanide. We eat edible plant foods, and if you need to cook them to get rid of the toxic components, you do that. What I'm trying to say though is we're going to go down this rabbit hole, but fundamentally you can thrive as a vegan. I mean, we're living examples of this. Tens of millions as high-performing athletes. We can just name a few, like Lewis Hamilton, like Kyrie Irving, Novak Djokovic, just to name a few. There's heaps. There's nothing to counter the fact that there are vegans. Not even just vegans, because that's an ethical point of view. We can just say people that are living off a plant-based diet that are thriving. That's there. That is the case. Now, knowing you can do that, I want to come back to this question.
But do you know that everyone can do that? Because the large majority of my patients...
You're getting adequate nutrition, yes you can. So again, this is the key question.
But these are people that are doing things the right way.
Okay.
They're taking all the supplements. I mean, these are celebrities and movie
What
stars
evidence
that
do you have to prove that?
What do you mean?
High quality evidence that you can show that vegans are unhealthy when they're getting adequate nutrition.
What high level evidence do you have to show that they are?
Well, we can prove that if you are consuming the nutrients you need, and there's monumental evidence to show that a predominantly plant-based diet, there's little evidence on veganism because that's ethical. But if you're getting the nutrition you need, and there's no denying that plant-based foods are healthy for you. Whole grains, fruits, vegetables, legumes.
Randomized controlled trials.
Absolutely, there are. So you can look at observational studies. You can look
That's not randomized controlled trials.
I said you can look at them, and you can also look at randomized controlled trials.
Do we have any for that? Do we have any randomized controlled trials?
To suggest that plant-based foods are healthy for you. Whole food plant-based.
But comparing what population? Comparing a standard American, standard Australian diet, which is largely plant-based anyway, it's just processed food, plant-based.
Most people aren't even following the dietary guidelines. Less than 10%.
It doesn't matter what the guidelines are. It doesn't matter what people are following. The majority of people are eating 75 to 80% plant-based. It's just processed food plant-based. So that's not the guidelines either. Cheetos are not the guidelines, but that's what a lot of people eat. And that's plant-based.
We're not advocating for Cheetos, and that's not plant-based.
No, I know you're not, but I'm saying.
We're advocating for a whole food plant-based diet.
So the thing is that you're not comparing, we don't have these studies that compare whole food plant-based diet versus a whole food meat-based diet. We have studies comparing whole food plant-based diet versus a processed plant food diet that includes some meat. And that's the difference.
Look, I don't think we're going to persuade one another that.
So you mentioned studies. What are these studies? Do you have?
So we can look at like the EPIC Oxford, you can look at CrediMed. These are all diets, these are all studies that are looking at and showing that actually plant-based foods are healthy for you. The more people consume over a long period of time and you study them, they have good health outcomes. They have lower mortality rates, and they also have lower disease rates.
What do you think? What do you think of these studies? Have you read them? Have you come across these in your practice?
Look, it's not all of these things, but a lot of these things are, again, comparing apples to oranges. They're comparing processed food diet.
Substitution analysis.
So are they comparing a whole food meat-based diet to a whole food plant-based diet?
There are studies that look at high red meat intakes and comparing that to that. But look, what I will say,
what are these
I don't want to
studies?
go down this rabbit hole.
Just for the people, what are these studies?
Yeah, so you can look at EPIC Oxford, you can look at the Nurses Health Study too, you can look at the Adventist Health Study too. Epidemiology is solid. Yeah, go on.
The problem with the studies is you have to look at how they define red meat. Right? Some of the studies quoted red meat on the topic that has toppings on a pizza. Eating that pizza was considered eating red meat.
All right.
Does that make sense to you?
What I'm going to say is that I don't really care if you can be healthy on a carnivore
studies
diet.
to compare eating meat and eating vegetables. Then we should compare people who eat steaks, who eat whole meats, real meats, not toppings on a pizza, compared to a plant-based diet. So it's not about just naming all the studies. We have to take the initiative to read the paper, look at definitions, who sponsored the paper, for what purpose.
Yeah, and then you can
Right.
look at the
So-
methods, you can look at the results interpretation, you can look at whether it's been peer reviewed. I will agree
compare
that
apples with apples. You can't compare apples with oranges. And as far as dietary studies are concerned, there are no studies comparing apples with apples.
So let's take the nurses study for example. That's something, and I actually know some of the nurses that are in these studies, and they say that once a year they get an email that says, write down all the meals you had last year. How accurate is that going to be? It's not going to be accurate. It's designed to be inaccurate. They can take that and manipulate that data and use it any way they want.
do you understand how the hierarchy of evidence actually works? Can you explain it?
Yeah, so why are you quoting the nurses study if that's the lowest hierarchy?
It's not the lowest hierarchy. The lowest hierarchy is
Well,
expert
low
opinion.
hierarchy anyway.
Then it's case studies,
Yeah.
case series. Then we have epidemiology, and then you have experimental studies, and then you have meta-analysis.
Yeah, so-
There are meta-analyses and critical reviews to even support that and show that the more whole food plant-based we eat, I'm not saying entirely, I'm not saying
Compared to
vegan. Sorry, what do you mean? I'm just saying the more that we eat,
Compared to what? It's always compared to what?
yeah, absolutely. What I'm trying to say is the more plants we eat, the healthier we are.
More plants than what? Than dirt? Than tobacco? Than meat? Than what? It matters what you're comparing.
Okay, so what then? Explain it.
Those studies are comparing people that eat a processed food diet with a whole foods plant-based diet. They're not comparing whole food meat-based diet with a whole food plant-based diet. And the nurses study is inherently flawed. Those sort of epidemiological studies are extremely
They do actually. They do substitution analysis comparing people that are eating, say, more animal protein, and then
Like
you compare
pizza
that to
and
plant
lasagna
protein. No,
and
just
fast food.
no. You
That's
can
what
look
they
at specifically what type of meat they're
They call
eating.
those meat.
Yeah,
Walter Willett admits to this. He talks.
I'm not denying you can be healthy whilst consuming meat.
The
I don't care.
nurses study asks you what you've eaten in the last year. That's inherently inaccurate. It's not saying, okay, track every meal for the next year. They say retrospectively look back at what you ate in the entire last year. That is going to be flawed. You're never going to have accurate data on it. This is the first time they had the average female caloric intake was hundreds of calories higher than the average male caloric intake in that study. That would be the first time in history that a large population of men ate less than women. Like this is inherently flawed.
What I'm going to say is, if you could be healthy on a carnivore diet, despite not really having any high quality evidence to support it, I don't really mind. If you want to eat a carnivore diet and consider yourself being healthy, you can say that. I'm trying to say that you can thrive as a vegan. You can do it. I think we're going to agree to disagree here. What I really want to focus on is that how can you justify, again, I want to ask you this question, enslaving innocent animals, chopping their head off inside of slaughterhouses, raping them, torturing them, how can you justify that? Knowing you don't have to be,
Okay.
you have an option.
So the thing is, two things. One, we disagree on the premise that you can be optimal.
Okay, well let's say
You can
hypothetically
survive.
from this book, so we're going to go around in circles.
Well,
Let's say
but-
hypothetically.
No, but that's not hypothetical. That's an important point. Because I have patients who are sick when they eat plants. They get autoimmunity. They get
That's
that.
anecdotal evidence. It's not evidence.
It's not actually.
It's not solid evidence.
Okay. Would you like to?
Do you agree you can thrive on a meat-based
I'm not going to
diet?
say thrive because there's no actual solid evidence to show that.
What's your
But what I will
defini-
say is
what's
if
your
you want
definition
it,
of
if you can
thrive,
survive off it, you
Anthony?
can.
Well, just being healthy.
Being healthy.
So the thing is that just being optimally healthy. So eating what we're biologically designed for is going to give us optimal nutrition. That's the definition in terms. So lions and hyenas and giraffes and cows, they have a specific evolutionary, biologically appropriate species-specific diet. That's how biology works.
But we don't derive health recommendations of what happens in nature.
Well, maybe we should.
No.
Because our health recommendations are shit, and people are getting fatter and sicker than they've ever been.
Because most people aren't following health
So the thing is-
recommendations.
Really? That's
No.
why? Do you have any high-level evidence to prove that?
That you can
That's
look at
why.
you can look at
That's
studies
why.
where most people are not even following what is recommended to be healthy. It's there. It's like less than 10% of people would
And what
even.
about people that are? I mean, you don't understand. Like we see
Like
this
we
all
are.
the time.
Are you saying we're unhealthy?
I don't know. I haven't checked your blood.
Well, we know our bloods. We are healthy.
Well, that's good.
Most-
I'm happy for
like,
you.
like I said, like this high performance. I don't want to argue too much on
Would
this.
you be open to do a blood examination to actually
Absolutely. Absolutely,
see
yeah.
what's going on inside you is a
absolutely.
real life example.
Yeah, and likewise.
Would you be able
But
to?
I don't really care. Like I'm trying to say over and over again, I don't really care. We can agree to differ on whether or not you can be healthy. I just want to get your point of view. Now let's go beyond this. Let's say hypothetically then, you have lab-grown meat that's identical to yours. Let's just say that. Would you say that lab-grown meat is more ethical than the flesh that comes from somebody that was murdered?
Do you know how lab-grown meat is made?
I'm just saying, let's say it's identical. Let's say it's
You know how
identical.
it's
No, I
made?
want to ask you, yes or no. Is
They inseminate a
No,
cow,
hold-
they rape it by your
You don't need to do
definition,
this.
and then they abort it. And
So
then
you're
they
saying
grow
that that's
that in the
unethical?
lab, and then they grow that. No, I'm saying that like, why are you saying that's okay, but letting an animal live out in a pasture and be protected from predators?
you don't have to be doing that to be growing lab-grown meat anymore,
So how do you
that's for
do it?
sure. I want to ask you again, let's say it's identical. Let's say it's identical. What is more ethical? Flesh that comes from somebody that was murdered, or flesh that comes from nothing, something that was grown in a lab?
So we don't agree on that either. But the thing is that you're talking about it's more ethical to be vegan. I don't agree with that.
What's more ethical? Flesh that comes from somebody that was murdered in a slaughterhouse, or one that was grown in a lab?
So what's more ethical, killing one animal for your food for 2 years and getting optimal nutrition, or killing 25 times the number of sentient animals to grow a single kilo of plant-based protein versus
Where does that
animal-based
even-
You can't
protein?
answer the question,
University
can
of New
you?
South Wales. So the
You've
thing-
avoided answering the question
What's
three
more
times
ethical?
now.
What's more ethical? The
What's
flesh
more
that
ethical,
comes from
killing
somebody
one
that
animal
died in a
2 years,
slaughterhouse?
Killing one animal every 2 years.
Okay, well, we
or
can go down
killing
this route. Sure.
Hundreds of animals to grow crops.
So that's not, first of all, those numbers are way off. But even if you're looking at
Take that up
incidental
with
deaths that are
the
coming from
University of New
grass-fed.
South
So what?
Take that up with the University of New South Wales. That was a study they published in 2011. That to grow 1 kilo of plant-based protein, you have to kill 25 times the number of sentient
What was
animals.
this study called?
I have it on my phone. I can send it to you.
Well, generally, like, can you have an idea of what it was? Like, what was the name of it? Because I know these studies.
Well, it's on my phone. Like I said, I don't know.
But what I'm just trying to say, these numbers are way off. We can pop up the numbers. So maybe I can send through the research on this. It's very limited, actually. But even if you're looking at grass-fed systems with cows, you're not accounting for the incidental deaths that are going to come from cows going over the grass, crushing insects in there, cows eating the grass, insects in there, kills from protecting predators, growing hay.
We're going to talk about insects. We talk about the 1 quadrillion insects that are killed every year from pesticides just in America. That's the entire base of the food chain. I mean, how many animals cease to exist because they starve to death or don't exist in the first place?
Pesticides that are also used in animal agricultural systems as well.
What pesticides do you have to use for a cow?
To grow hay, to grow the crops that are fed to them.
93% of
They also spray pesticides onto their body because insects go onto cows' body. You can look at this.
that's in certain conditions, but you don't have to support those conditions. You can go.
Incidental
direct
deaths simultaneously occur in animal agriculture as well. Now, the big difference between plant-based agriculture and animal agriculture in this case is like, I like this analogy. So you're driving one car, you're driving another car. One represents plant-based agriculture, one represents animal-based agriculture. Both are going to have incidental deaths. So in this case, it's like you're driving a car. You know when you drive your car, you're likely to hit small animals. You're also likely to hit a human. You have to account for this when you drive a car. That's an incidental death that's going to occur in it. But we also know we need to be driving a car, so we take that risk on board. The difference between plant-based agriculture or a vegan and yourself, one that supports animal agriculture, is you're forcibly breeding animals into existence to put them on the road and then hit them deliberately, as well as the incidental deaths that come along with that. How do you justify forcibly breeding animals into existence, enslaving them, and then sending them to a slaughterhouse at a fraction of their natural lifespan? How do you justify that?
Well, life is taken either way. So you're justifying.
I can't just take your life.
No, you're justifying killing all these animals, including the air, the waterways, including the soil, having glyphosate in the rainwater now, destroying the environment because you want to eat plants and you want to say, well, I'm one step removed from killing these animals, therefore it's okay to kill those animals. It's not. It's the same thing.
Animal agriculture is literally responsible for the most deforestation in the world, ocean dead zones.
What about acai berries? What about all the
I don't
crops?
eat acai berries.
Well,
What are
I'm
you
just
talking about?
saying, they're cutting down the Amazon for
But
them.
I'm saying animal agriculture is the leading cause of deforestation. Absolutely it is.
Well, the thing is that you can put animals on land. You don't have to deforest it. You can do this in a different way. And the thing is that animals bring manure, they drink water, they pee that out, and they revitalize the soil. You cannot have plant agriculture without animal agriculture. That's
Plant agriculture requires significantly less land as well. It's not even feasible to have that many cows grazing on Earth. If we were to have a grass-fed system for the entire Earth, we would need multiple Earths.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, absolutely. If we went plant-based, you would actually free up as much land as the entire continent of Africa.
How much arable land is there?
Sorry?
How much arable land is there that you can grow crops?
So you give me the number.
4% of the Earth's surface. How much rangeland and forest land where you can run animals on? It's 25%. So there's far more land available to run animals on. You don't have to deforest it. You can just run animals through it and actually improve.
You do have to deforest it.
You don't.
The science actually shows that it is the leading cause of deforestation.
No. Just because people do it doesn't mean you have to do it. There are different ways of doing things. And that's the thing. You can support people that are raising animals in a more ethical way. And I support that. I don't think that's a good
How
thing.
is slavery ethical? How is slavery and murder ethical?
Okay, so why is it better to murder other animals?
I already explained to you the case between incidental.
One step removed and therefore it's okay.
Both contain incidental deaths. Both use pesticides. Actually, you're talking about grass-fed specifically, but 90% of people are consuming animals that come from conventional agriculture as well.
So let's change that.
The vast majority of
go in that direction.
It doesn't take away the rights violations, the murder, the enslavement that you're continuing to justify.
So the thing is, this conversation is about nutrition.
No, it's not.
It is actually.
Yeah, I think on one side, the question is, what you're trying to pose is, how can you justify killing animals? And the approach...
Murdering animals, not just killing.
Killing, murdering. And the approach you guys are trying to take is they're trying to justify whether or not plant-based diet is an adequate, nutritious diet for the human being. That's really the question.
Yeah, we've already tried to establish
Is a plant-based diet a nutritious diet?
Yeah, there's nothing. I can't convince a pseudoscientist. There's nothing that I can say to convince somebody.
What makes you say he's a pseudoscientist?
Because he hasn't provided any actual high-quality evidence to support his claims.
You haven't
Provide me some type of evidence
that plants... The nurse's study is not a high-quality study.
Sorry?
The nurse's study is not a high-quality study. Why are you saying...
There are meta-analyses as well.
Of junk. Meta-analysis of
What do you have to support your claims?
Junk in, junk out. A meta-analysis of craft studies that don't compare the populations at question.
What can I say to convince you? I just want to hear some studies on your side.
Okay. Well,
some high-quality studies.
Some high-quality studies. So there was an interventional trial with Crohn's disease looking at actual medical outcomes where they took away carbohydrates and fiber.
What type of study was it?
It was a randomized control trial. They had 2 subject parties, and they had one group. They both had Crohn's disease, and they removed carbohydrates and fiber, and they saw how long could you stay in remission without medication. The experiment group stayed in remission on average 51 or up to 51 months. The control group stayed in remission without medication on average 0 months. That's experimental data taking away something plant-based, carbohydrates and fiber. There was something in the fiber of carbohydrates or something that came along with them that was precipitating and worsening and exacerbating their Crohn's disease. You take that away, it goes away. So that's a serious medical issue that goes away when you remove plant material. There's another one with Crohn's disease, another randomized controlled trial where they put the people on an elemental diet, which is a very processed diet. It's just the macros and micros that you need. They don't have all of them because you don't know all of them. And it's generally ketogenic because it's developed for kids with epilepsy. And that elemental diet was a better treatment to get people out of an acute flare-up of Crohn's than prednisolone, which is steroids, which is the gold standard. So just not eating certain things was a better treatment than steroids, the gold standard. And that's what a steak is. It's just your macros and micros that you need and nothing else.
So are you, just to make it clear, are you just overall going to deny that even if you're getting adequate nutrition, you can't be healthy on a plant-based diet?
No,
just
I'm not saying you can't be healthy.
So you can be healthy?
I'm saying that you can't be optimal. I'm saying there are a lot of people that suffer severely. I'm saying that the nutrients...
What are you talking about? I don't know anyone that's suffering from eating a plant-based diet.
I told you about how...
That you talked about ways that you can help alleviate Crohn's disease, which can also be done other ways as well.
So what did I just say? So people eating certain plants exacerbates their Crohn's disease. We have hundreds of patients that massively benefit from eliminating plants. There are literally hundreds of thousands, millions of people around the world doing this right now.
Well, let's go with that. For the people that can be healthy as a vegan,
do what you want.
Yeah,
I have no problem with
that. No, I'm just saying, for people, that's the vast majority. People can be.
Really?
I just want to know, again, knowing you can be healthy.
Pretty pseudoscientific to make that statement.
What? That you can get
Vast
adequate
majority of
nutrition
people
and thrive.
That the vast majority.
What evidence do you have to support that claim?
What claim?
The claim that you just made.
That you can get adequate nutrition as a
The
vegan.
vast majority of people will thrive on a vegan diet. What high-level data do you have to show that?
What do you? I'm just trying to get it clear. I'm just trying to say, if you can get adequate nutrition,
No, you're avoiding the issue. You said that the vast majority of people
if you have access
thrive
to
on a
plant-based foods,
vegan diet.
yes,
What is your evidence for that?
it's a logical thing.
No.
To say,
What is your
no, if you
evidence?
can get adequate nutrition,
No.
you can meet
What
your
is your
nutrient
evidence?
intakes, your blood work support it.
What is your evidence?
What are you trying to say that you can't do it?
You made a definitive statement. You said that the vast majority can do this. What is your evidence to say that?
I want to know your evidence to say otherwise, that you can't. If you're meeting your nutrient requirements, what evidence do you have on any diet that you can't thrive on that diet, knowing you're meeting your nutrient requirements?
You made a claim
Yeah.
that you can't defend it.
I don't have any papers on me to give it an exact name
You
on
made
that.
a claim that you can't defend.
I'm trying to say that if
You
you're
made
getting,
a claim that you can't defend.
my claim is, if you're
guys
getting
can't
adequate
defend
nutrition,
anything either. All leading dietetic and nutrition associations across the world confirm that a 100% plant-based diet is safe at all stages of life, no matter what
That's not
disease.
true. That's not true. Italy
So
bans
you
vegan diets
deny
for sure.
the leading nutrition and dietetic associations across the world,
Yeah.
their claim.
Yeah.
people that
Okay,
spend
so
thousands of hours.
where's your evidence
They're not the only ones.
deny
Because the thing is,
dietetics and
You're
nutritionists?
cherry picking. You're saying that these are
Not
the
cherry picking.
dietary.
The nutritionists and dietetics, leading nutritionists and dietetics of the world, are cherry picking.
No,
Where's
you
your
are. You're picking them because
No,
they're
we're talking about
No.
dietitians,
pediatricians,
people that study it, spend their life studying
Yeah, and
nutrition.
there are plenty of them that say no, you can't.
But this is a consensus
Oh,
by
good. Well,
associations.
that defines reality then, consensus. Well, the consensus was that, murder, rape, and slavery was good for thousands of years. Obviously, that was okay then, right?
What consensus? You're talking about society consensus. We're talking about a consensus of scientists here.
Oh, well, we go back to
So again,
Aristotle and
okay, well, let's
Plato,
say that
they
then.
argued
You're
for
still
slavery as
paying
well.
for the
They were-
rape.
they were
You're still
brightest
paying for the
minds of their
rape,
day.
murder, and abuse of animals. Again, how can you justify that? If you put humans in the position that you put animals, how could you justify putting humans into a slaughterhouse? You can get nutrients from
How do
humans.
you justify killing 25 times the number of animals to grow your crops rather than just having one animal every 2 years?
That's not true. A majority of crops grown are fed to the 80 billion farmed
No,
animals that are
93%
murdered every year.
93% of the food that animals get are inedible by humans. They'll either be burned or thrown in a landfill.
Okay, so there's roughly 80 billion, if not more, land animals that are bred into existence every year and murdered, and the human population is 8 billion. Who do you think's eating the most food on this planet? 80 billion non-human animals or 8 billion human animals? Who's eating more?
Right, but what is that food? Is that
Who's
food?
eating
Who's
more?
eating more?
Who cares? That's not the
No, but
question.
who's eating more? I'm
Who
just.
cares?
But it's
is
common
relevant.
sense what the answer is, right?
For the amount of incidental
80
deaths that
billion
occur.
non-human people or 8 billion
What are they
humans?
eating?
Who's
They're
who's
eating
eating
grass.
more?
They're eating-
Who's eating more food?
Who cares?
No, who is eating
No,
more
no,
food? Do
seriously.
you know the
What does
answer
it
or
matter?
not?
No, why does it matter?
What does it matter?
I'm asking you a question. This is a debate, and I'm asking you a question, and you failed to answer pretty much any of our questions.
No, the problem
Who's
is-
eating
no,
more
you-
food? 80 billion land animals or 8 billion human animals? It's common sense. What's the answer?
Fine. Well, you know the answer then. And my
What is
counter
your answer?
Who cares?
What's your answer? Yes.
Well,
who?
probably the 80 billion.
Yes.
Yeah.
So who do you think is responsible for the most incidental deaths? The 80 billion land animals that are consuming the vast majority of resources on Earth, or the 8 billion humans?
It's 8 billion humans by far.
No, who are responsible for the most incidental deaths when you're considering
Humans
the
by
amount
far.
of how?
Because we're killing a quadrillion insects
No,
every
but
year
you
by
just
spraying.
admitted that the 80 billion land humans logically would be consuming the most resources. That absolutely is the case. That's where most of the incidental deaths are going to occur.
Not at all.
Okay.
That is saying that the only resource is the grass as a food source, but the animals
But they're
themselves
actually
can be
consuming
a
most of
food
the
source,
crops.
right?
They're not just being fed grass.
No,
it's
they're
actually
not
a very
eating
small
most of the
percentage.
crops. They're eating the silage. They're eating the waste of the crops that we grow for humans. We grow that
that's
for
not the
ourselves.
case.
That is the case.
Most of the
Those are
crops grown in the
facts.
world are actually fed to animals.
No, they're
Not for
not.
humans.
Those are the inedible parts of the plant.
If I could
You've got the
interject.
hay, you've got a piece of stalk, and we take the grain. We grow it for the grain. Then we have all this plant left over. What do we do with that? Well, we can burn it, which is what they do down the Amazon. They do that all over the world, causing massive pollution and waste. Or they throw it away. They
So if we
putting
stopped
landfill.
breeding animals into
Or
existence
they
and
could
feeding all that food to them, we could free up so much land that
That's
could be
completely
rewilded
garbage.
and far less
And
land
we
for the
have
8
to
billion
burn
humans
these
as
things.
compared to
We're
the
not
8.
growing these things for animals. We're giving
They
them
are being grown for
waste
them.
products.
That's
No,
so true.
they are not.
Well, they shouldn't
Don't
be
know the
raised and
facts.
bred into existence in the first place. They should not exist to be subjected to rape, enslavement, torture, abuse, and murder.
Yeah,
It's
look,
that simple.
That's fine, and that's certainly the discussion that we can have. But we're jumping around from different points. And the thing is that we do grow crops for ourselves, and the waste products do go to animals. And if they don't go to the animals, they get burned or they get thrown away. And now, look, I'm not arguing from an ethical point of view. Like I agree with you. We need to treat animals well. That's our.
So why
They do agree with veganism. Then you
I
shouldn't
agree
be
with the
paying for them
premise.
to be
I
murdered
agree
and
with
have
the
their
premise.
heads chopped off.
I agree with the premise that we should treat animals in
So
our
why
care
don't you do that?
properly.
You wouldn't do this to
Okay,
humans, so why
what-
do
what's
it to
proper?
non-humans?
You have to think past stage one. You can't look at the surface level.
Well, I'll-
So here we're raising an animal. Here we're eating plants, but then what's beyond that? Because I eat a cow that's going to last me for 2 years. That's one life.
Plus all the incidental deaths that go with that.
Sure. And then this is going to take far more life. It's going to damage the
This is not true.
ecosystem far more. It's going to kill a quadrillion insects just in America. That's the base of the food chain. 700 million birds get injured by a pesticide. 68
Same
million birds.
pesticides used in animal agriculture.
No,
Yes.
it's not, because animals can just eat grass.
Now, let's say,
So the animals
what
I
trait-
eat
Yeah.
eat grass.
No, I get, we're going around in circles here.
Jack,
Yeah.
hypothetically, the foundation of your statement is that we're killing animals and they shouldn't be killed. If philosophically we imagine a reality where death wasn't real, like when you die you're actually born again and it's continuing on, would that make you change your stance on being able to eat meat?
That's the same thing. I wouldn't kill you just because you might be reborn again. You deserve to have your life. I'm not going to murder you. And the same for non-human animals. I just want to know, like, what trait are non-human animals lacking that allows you to justify sending them into slaughterhouses, but not humans?
Okay,
So what trait?
what traits do plants act?
Then I'll ask you a question.
No,
but like, rephrase another question to me.
No. Thing is, this is part of nature, this is part of life. We are heterotrophs. Animals are heterotrophs. Something has to die for
What trait are they lacking that allows you to murder them but not humans?
These are
What trait?
false equivalents.
Once again, you can't answer the
What
question.
trait are non-human animals lacking that allows you
It's
to
pretty
enslave and murder them but
This
not
is a
humans?
distraction.
It's not a distraction.
It
It's a
is.
question.
No, it's a
Is
distraction.
it because you feel guilty when you think about your answer to these questions?
No.
Feel
Because the thing
guilty for
is-
being
no,
responsible
we've
for the
been
largest
hunters.
Holocaust in history?
Well, you are. That's a fact.
So you're not guilty for murdering animals. You don't feel guilty.
Holocaust, because they eat other fish, and they eat other fish, 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 they eat algae. And so they're all carnivores, they're all killing each other.
So do you base
Do we get
your
rid of
morality on what wild animals do?
Do you base morality just on what you can see in front of you and not the knock-on effects that happen?
Do you base your morality on what happens in nature? Yes or no?
Can you expand on that question,
Do
please?
you base your moral choices, your daily decisions, on what happens in nature? Yes or no?
No.
Well, at the moment, you're appealing to a nature fallacy. You're saying because wild animals
I'm
eat
pointing
other
out.
animals, therefore it's okay for you to do. That's what it seems like you're
No.
implying here.
No, I am saying that it's okay for us to eat other animals, but that has nothing to do with other animals eating other animals.
But you were just talking about fish eating other fish. But
Yeah, right.
but
So
we're
we-
trying to
no,
talk
you're
about
talking
your
about the
food
largest
choice.
carnivore.
What is your
You're saying that-
justification
no,
to murder
no,
animals?
You're jumping around the topics. You made a specific point. You said this is the largest Holocaust. And I said, no, it's not. Animals
is.
eating other animals throughout the world, or they're eating
Okay,
far more
what's the
animals than we
definition
are.
of a Holocaust?
What
Do you
exactly
know what a
would you get at?
Holocaust is?
Sweetie, the thing is...
No, you don't
is
need
that-
to call me sweetie
Well, I
and
just
degrade
did.
me
The thing
because you
is-
can't. You don't even know what a Holocaust is. It's deliberate mass murder.
Okay.
So is
That's because it's
so
a
what's
shark-
happening in nature
a shark
is not
deliberately
deliberate.
eating other fish.
It's not murder because they need to do
Yeah,
it
but
for
we're
in
not
order
in
for
the
their
Holocaust.
survival.
We
It's
do
not
too.
murder.
We are doing this for our survival. This is the optimal way for
So
people to live.
so we should be dead then.
And maybe
All the
eventually-
millions of vegans on this planet should be dead.
High-performing
So
athletes.
Because you said you said we need to eat animals for survival, but we're here alive right here in front of you. You did. Earlier in this conversation, you said we need meat for survival. You said that.
There are essential nutrients in meat that you have to
Yeah, but you said you need it for survival, but we're here in front
No, I
of you.
said
We haven't
thrive.
ate
I said
animals
that
for
you can eat
7
whatever
years.
you want.
You said
But
we
if you
need
want to
meat for
thrive, if you
survival.
want to be optimal, I said optimal.
No, you
So
said we
high-performing
need
athletes are
meat for
optimal?
survival. It's all recorded. You said we need meat for survival.
Yeah, I also said optimal. You need nutrients from meat. If you want to say you can use some supplements, that's fine.
So what nutrients in animal flesh do you need for optimal survival that you can't get in a
I literally
plant-based
just said
diet?
carnitine. I gave you that example. You want to say so?
There are so many nutrition found in meat products, I mean red meat or white meat, seafood, whatever, which you can't find anywhere else.
Like what?
Your essential amino acids.
You can get them all on a plant-based diet, mate.
Not carnitine.
Yeah, well, even if it was carnitine, which we are producing, self-producing in our body, that's why it's not essential.
But it's not.
Let's say, no, let's say, no, okay, now let's say, now we got a diet.
We're going to let Sanju
Yeah,
just
sure,
finish up.
sure.
We also need those nutrients to be present in a bioavailable form.
What do you mean by
Like,
bioavailable for
human
the
gut? The human gut is designed through evolution to digest meat and to absorb all the nutrients from meat. That's what we've been eating for millions of years.
Okay, so let's look at some high-performing athletes then. Are they missing some nutrients?
No,
to perform
I'm
at
not going to
optimal level?
comment on high-performing athletes who we've only known for a couple of years.
Sure.
We need long-term studies, right? Long-term
Absolutely, I agree with that. It was just an
observations,
example.
right?
Right.
So I can only explain to you, I can only tell you my clinical experience, right?
So you have people come in who are vegans.
I won't say always, I often get people saying, I am a vegan, I was a vegan, now I'm eating meat. I've never come across a person who said, I was always eating meat, now I'm a vegan. All right? I get people saying, I'm sick because I'm a vegan. Just last week, I was saying to you earlier, Jacob, that
It goes both ways.
a lady who was a vegan for 30 years came to me saying she needs help. And she's just started eating meat. And she's already feeling better.
Would you say it's okay if they started eating humans for those nutrients?
No, I think
That
we
is
should
just false equivalent.
we should stop
saying-
somebody
There's
human.
no
I'm just
moral
saying,
difference.
there's no moral
There's no moral difference between eating a human and a non-human. We're all animals. There is no moral difference. So would you go out and advocate
So
for
hold on a
humans
second.
to eat
If we're all
humans?
animal, then you need to subject other animals to that same the moral compass that we are subjected to. Because if we're not different, then they are committing this Holocaust as well. If you're saying,
Well,
well,
how
how
does
does
nature
nature
as a
morality
They're not
in
deliberately
nature?
murdering.
They are actually. They are deliberately killing
Yeah,
other
well,
animals so that
For
they.
survival, I would say in a survival situation,
What about chimpanzees though? They rip apart small
should be
monkeys for
able to
fun.
kill for our own
But that
survival.
doesn't make it moral.
Whether it's a
Can you
human
make
or
that
a
one again?
non-human, for your survival, you need to kill, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But we're not living in a survival situation.
But what about chimpanzees? They kill small monkeys and gerbils and small deer, in fact, for
that's
fun.
horrible.
Yeah,
That's for
wild
fun.
animals also murder their own babies.
But
They
we're-
rape one
we're
another. I don't think we should be
0.01%
basing our morals on what they
divided
do
from
out
that.
in the wild. It's
Yeah.
horrible. I wish it didn't happen, but I don't have any control over that. I have control over what I can do and advocate for animal rights. And we can thrive on a plant-based diet. We've already established that.
Yeah,
So what is
no.
the justification to mass enslave and holocaust trillions of animals?
So the thing is, there's two major points here. Is no, we don't agree that you can thrive on a plant-based diet for everybody. Some people can do better, but you're not going to be optimal. You're not going to be the best that you can be, and many people. Will
How
be
is that
sick
still
by
a
that.
justification to murder
And
animals?
second of
Even
all-
if you can't
and
be
second of all-
optimal, how is it justification
second
to
of all-
chop someone's head
And
off?
second of all, you are ignoring the fact that you kill far more animals and destroy far more.
I'm not
and
ignoring it because
agriculture.
I have evidence to show
Fire.
otherwise.
Do you?
Yeah,
Where?
there's plenty of evidence.
Where?
Jack has it all.
There's really not a lot, but there is one study by Davis. I forget the name of it. I wish I had it for you. I mean, you probably already read it if you've looked into the crop death. And even that one itself, which was trying to say that I think it's double the amount are killed in plant-based agriculture, but then when you actually crunch the numbers and you look at caloric efficiency, it's maybe like 4 to 6 times at minimum. 4 to 6 times more animals are murdered on a animal-based farming system as compared to a plant-based ones. When you look at caloric efficiency,
I think I know which one you're talking
Yeah,
about,
yeah.
but I think they compare that to chickens, and so I'm talking about large animals, right?
no, I think they're looking at large animals.
No, I'm pretty sure that
no,
was-
because they looked at many animals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is,
Chickens
when you
were
look
the
at-
most,
When
yes.
you look at cows, right? Which is what
It's
I
still
do, and I
in
try
that
to go
case.
to a farm, a veterinary raised farm that these animals are treated well. That's different.
They're not treated well in a slaughterhouse, and you already admitted to that.
So well, pneumatic hammer is that quick.
So,
A pneumatic hammer is that quick.
So a quick murder is okay? If someone put a gun to your head and did it quickly, it's
we're talking
okay?
about how to harvest animals for food in the best way
Harvest,
possible.
it's murder. You harvest plants, you don't harvest sentient beings, you murder them.
I'm sorry, but
Have you
you're-
seen
you're killing
slaughterhouse
more, You're
footage?
killing more sentient beings for growing crops. And also, plants have a peripheral nervous system. They feel and respond to pain. They scream when they're hurt. They respond
So
to
you think they're sentient? You think plants are
100 years
sentient?
ago, 100 years ago, people made that same argument about animals. They said that they don't feel pain the way humans do,
don't
so
have
it's
a nervous
okay to
system.
torture them and be nasty to them. Obviously, we have come forward in our understanding. Now we're coming forward in our understanding of botanical sciences. They scream. They scream at it with different vibratory signals. They send out chemical signals. They communicate through their root system. They have a complex system of passing resources and waters throughout entire forest structures. There's a plant, a sentinel plant tree that connects all of these different plants and controls the resources throughout all of them. These are actually very, very, very
Yes.
highly evolved.
But fundamentally, they don't have a central nervous system, therefore they don't have pain receptors.
Is cutting a carrot the same as chopping a pig's head off?
But Anthony, can I ask a question? When it comes to grain-fed versus grass-fed, the majority of cows, are they grain-fed or grass-fed? And grass
Yeah,
pasture?
the majority would be, but that's what I'm saying. You vote with your pocketbook, right? You try to support animal agriculture that produces, a more ethical model, and you can certainly do that. But still, the majority of the feed that are given to animals are
Can I ask you a question on
not
that?
edible by humans.
Can I ask you a question? So now let's say, going with what you were saying, which I don't support this, I don't believe this, and I don't think there's any evidence to support this, but let's say that more incidental deaths did occur on a plant-based diet as compared to an animal-based diet. Let's say that's the case. Would you then support eating humans because less lives would be taken as compared to the incidental deaths?
No, because I'm not looking at it from that metric.
No, but,
I'm
so
looking at
you
this
wouldn't
from-
choose then? So why do you
what I'm
choose
saying is
other
that
animals?
what I'm saying is I'm looking at this from a nutritional standpoint. So the thing is that I'm not arguing from an ethical standpoint. I'm arguing from a nutritional standpoint because I'm a doctor and I want to have the best nutrition for my patients because it makes a massive difference. This is not a small thing, and maybe some people can be healthy, and most people cannot. And so we are seeing the largest rise in non-communicable chronic diseases that has ever happened in human history. And so that is something that I feel strongly about from a health standpoint. The ethical discussion is one that's important, and I think that's important to have. However, I think that the nutritional side of things is paramount. So I think that
You keep
is the most
deflecting away
important
from the
part.
ethical conversation.
But that's my point, is because I'm not making an ethical claim.
But I was asking you a question, you couldn't answer it. And I want to come back to this question earlier. It's just like, what trait, again, are non-human animals lacking that allows you to force them into slaughterhouses but not humans? What are they lacking? How can you justify it for non-humans but you wouldn't justify it for humans?
The thing is, I don't think you're being consistent.
No, I just want to know your answer.
There is a difference. There is a difference.
What's the difference? That's what I'm asking
Well, the
you.
fact that we can even have this conversation is the difference. The fact that we can moralize and discuss the ethics involved in this is a big.
So if there was a mentally disabled human right here and they couldn't have this conversation, you would justify sending them into a slaughterhouse, so what you're saying?
No.
So what is it then?
Because humans in general are capable of this sort of thing, and so
Non-human animals
that
can
we're
communicate
putting
with one
ourselves we are putting ourselves on a pedestal, but that's why. And animals have no bearing or regard for the torture and suffering of the animals that they eat. They typically eat them alive. They're ripping them apart.
It's
they're ripping
horrible.
their guts out and eating their organs as they're still alive. I'm looking at this going like, just kill the damn thing, like Jesus.
And that's why we don't derive our morals from.
No,
what
but that's
happens in
my
nature.
point.
So the
we are
trait for you
different. No,
then-
but we are different because we're different in that regard too. Because we can look at that and say, I don't want that animal to suffer.
Yeah, we have
but I
moral
can still-
agency.
But I can still understand that, that this is optimal nutrition. So that's the thing. We are different.
So you're
And
saying the
that is-
trait is because we can communicate, that's why it's not okay
No.
that it can. So what is the trait that allows you to do it to non-human animals but not humans? What trait is
Literally
it?
what I just described.
All right, I think we're going in circles here. I've got a question, a yes or no question for both of you guys. We are land-dwelling animals on this planet Earth, right? We can all agree, I think.
Yeah.
Are you guys for planet Earth?
What do you mean by that, sorry?
Are you for the planet's sustainability?
Oh, absolutely.
You guys?
100%.
Yes. What, in your eyes, is the thing that's deteriorating this planet's sustainability for the future? In a minute.
I'm not really an environmental scientist, but I can touch on what I do know. There are many factors: greenhouse gas emissions, the destruction of natural lands, all of which do come from animal agriculture, but not just from animal agriculture. It's a big contributor, transport system, etc., etc. But yeah, I mean, there's probably many things that are destroying the environment. I'm not an environmental scientist, so I can't say exactly what.
Right. In a diet standpoint for single crop agriculture, done some reading on this recently, and had a discussion with yourselves. I wanted to know, is there a way to continue these crops going, but also have a regenerative system in place as well? Because the use of animals to re-soil the topsoil, the fertile soil that's on top that you guys grow, not you guys obviously, but that people grow their single crops from, is obviously being tillaged and absolutely decimated. Is there a way to rejuvenate that? In your eyes, I know you're not a scientist and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there are ways, there's polycultures and stuff like that. I did do a little bit of study into permacultures, which is looking into all the most sustainable ways in which you can do so. And animals do often come into the process of a sustainable agricultural system, but that doesn't have to be enslaved animals, right? It can come from wild animals as well. If we create ecosystems that bring in wild animals into that cycle, to provide manure and whatnot, as well as polycultures. I mean, there are many veganic ways of farming. When you study that in permaculture, you can do it veganically. You can do it with animals, but I would never advocate for one that involves the enslavement and then eventual murder of animals, knowing we don't have to.
Is putting a fence around animals enslavement?
It's not necessarily the fence around them. It's actually the idea that you are breeding them into existence forcibly for the sole purpose of commodifying them and consuming their bodies. In the same way that, yes, you can put a fence around a human, but that's not necessarily the slavery part. It's the actual forced breeding of them and using them to make money off them that we have an issue with.
Right, okay. Yeah, it's an interesting line of questioning when you think that animals still need to be used to regenerate soil.
I don't say they need to be. I'm saying they can benefit and it can come from wild animals, but it's not essential.
How do you know any studies or anything? Well, maybe not.
I'm not an environmental scientist. I did a little bit of study. I have a garden. You don't need to be. You can compost and get topsoil without having animal products put into that. You can just compost scraps from inside your house, or you can do it on a mass scale as well. I mean, I'm not an environmental scientist, but I do know from what I have seen is that wild animal products can be a part of that, ideally not from enslaved animals, which definitely doesn't have to be the case. You can do it without animals as well. There's veganic farms out there as well.
Do you guys think there's a right way to farm, and if so, does single crop agriculture go against that?
Well, I think the massive monocropping does cause quite a lot of destruction. I mean, it almost caused a second Sahara Desert to form in the middle of America. Those are the Dust Bowl. We were doing this massive crop, rows of crops and tillers, and the wind would blow away all the topsoil and wash away all the topsoil in the rain and things like that, and wash it all the way down to nothing. It had no topsoil. And that was at a time when people first started colonizing North America. The topsoil was something like 12 to 20 feet deep or something like that. So these sorts of practices actually do necessarily destroy the ecosystem. You necessarily have to just kill every plant and every animal living in that ecosystem. They're gone now. You till up the soil, we lose 27.5 billion tons of topsoil every single year based on our current farming practices. And we changed our farming practices during the Dust Bowl, but we figured out this was from that crop. This is why you normally see sort of scallop patterns to crops. There's not just one big row for 6 miles, and that's held, but you still lose a lot of this stuff. And so lose 27.5 billion tons of topsoil. I think that was 2017 statistic. That's an area the size of Kentucky every year. It takes about 500 years to grow a centimeter of topsoil. Right. So there's a very limited resource that can be gone. It's been estimated from different environmental scientists that we may only have about 50 growing cycles left on Earth, and then we completely exhausted the capacity for our arable land to produce viable crops. We're using a lot of petrochemicals. These have specific minerals and nutrients that help crops grow, but they're lacking in in sufficient micronutrients like selenium and other sorts of things that we do require. Now it's just getting more and more depleted in the soil. So and that's another reason why different industries are pushing this sort of thing, supporting going plant-based, is because the massive oil conglomerates, they benefit massively from plant agriculture because of the petrochemicals. Because if you don't have animals, you have to use petrochemicals, and they're inferior in a lot of ways as well. For this massive production, you certainly have a garden and do things much better. And if people were able to do that, that's going to be much better for the environment. But they're trying to go against that too. There was a report that came out that said if you having your own garden produces 5 times the amount of greenhouse gases than just buying it from the store, which is, just a fraud right there. But they're trying to get people away from doing that. As far as greenhouse gas emission goes, animal agriculture in America, I think accounts for less than 3% of the emissions in America. And for cows specifically, I think it's less than 1 or 2%. It's very small. And crop agriculture, with everything sort of taken into consideration, is more like 7-8%. The medical establishment, just hospitals and so on, is like 12%. And then, you're looking at different sorts of things. We're talking about, deforestation for, livestock. I don't agree with that. I don't think you should do that. But we do that for plant agriculture as well. 55% of Borneo's rainforests have been completely destroyed and taken away for palm seed oil crops. And people say, well, they've replaced plants with plants, so it's the same. Well, it's not the same. You've killed all the orangutans, you've killed all the pythons, you've killed all the animals, you've completely destroyed this habitat. And now you have a monocrop, which is not an ecosystem. It's not a healthy, diverse ecosystem. It's one plant. All those animals are dead. All those plants are dead. And now you planted your crop, and those animals that come in and mess with your crop, they get shot. So, that's in that same regard, that's an immoral justification for growing your food too. If you have deer that come on your property, and pigs that come onto your property, and kangaroos that come onto your property, and they get shot, they get trapped, they get poisoned, they get killed in order to protect that commodity, that crop. So it's much more complex than just surface picture.
So you would say that you're a meat-eating vegan?
I think that if you do this properly, you will amount to less animal suffering and death, and less environmental impact. And in fact, you could improve the environment greatly by doing this as well.
If a vegan diet did sustain optimally in the best way, say if it had the vitamin B12 at an active level, would you be a vegan?
So the thing is that the only reason I eat the way I eat is because biologically this is our optimal diet and nutrition. And that's what I care about, is optimal health for myself as well as my patients. That's my main crux on this. Obviously there are moral, ethical values that come into this, but that is my number one issue here.
And if there was no cruelty or suffering, would you guys eat meat?
How can there not be cruelty or suffering to eat someone's body?
In a fallacy world.
Like they just chose to die. Like they came to your property and then they just kill themselves.
Or just died of old age.
And you had nothing else to eat.
Just like I wouldn't eat a dead human's body, I wouldn't eat a non-human's body. No.
If meat grew on trees.
No need to when there's abundance of
Well, it wouldn't matter in that case. No, it wouldn't matter. If you wanted to eat them, yeah, absolutely. If it came off a tree, no sentient being had to be exploited and abused, well, then who cares?
Are you guys funded by any vegan organizations?
No.
What about you? Are you funded by any meat organizations? No.
No, I mean, the only affiliations I have would be like my sponsor for my podcast would be, like the Carnivore, which is like a meat-based bar. That's not like an industry. That's a mom and pop product.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Joe Rogan's a big meat proponent. If you had a message for him, what would you guys say to him?
If you're not vegan, you're an animal abuser, and you have a moral obligation to stop paying for animals to be enslaved, raped, tortured, abused, and murdered.
So you think Joe Rogan's torturing animals?
Yeah, if you're not vegan, it's a fact that you're torturing, enslaving, abusing, and murdering animals.
You can see it for yourself in the documentary Dominion. It just exposes exactly what happens in animal agricultural practices, specifically here in Australia. All RSPCA approved, all quote-unquote humane certified, but it's the most horrible things that we've ever seen occur to any sentient being, and that's exactly why we're here speaking about it today.
All right, well...
Look, I don't disagree with you that there are things that need to be improved. And, when people abuse animals, I think that's sick. I think that we have, especially if we're raising these things to eat for our food and consumption, we have a moral obligation to protect them, care for them, protect them from harm, heal them when they're sick, and then give them as clean and quick and painless a death as possible. And that's what we're doing, which is, I think, arguably a big step up from what we used to be doing for the last 2 million years, which is killing these things with
So we wouldn't
spears.
justify that for humans, dogs, cats, any other animal that we care for. Just because it's painless doesn't mean it's right. I could painlessly shoot you in the head right now, but I wouldn't do it because I wouldn't want to steal your life from you. And I don't think we should be stealing lives from non-human animals as well, especially when it's completely unnecessary.
Well, I don't agree that it is unnecessary, and that's the thing. Look, I don't agree with I don't disagree with your standpoint, and you obviously feel very strongly about this, and I absolutely with you on that. I think it's abhorrent that we have to kill something for us to live, but I think that is the reality, and I think that to be optimal and to be as healthy as we can be from a doctor point of view, we've just seen a lot of human suffering when people aren't able.
So you would say then, essentially just based on what you said, that if it wasn't necessary to consume animal products, you would say it would be the more ethical option based on?
Well, I guess that depends on how you look at plants, because I think that plants are definitely not happy for us to eat.
They're not sentient.
Would you be open to provide your blood to do an examination?
Absolutely, I would love
You'd be
to. I do it regularly anyway.
You guys would be good for that?
Maybe every 6 months, yeah.
I feel very weird wearing a red suit asking for your blood.
Only if, likewise, only
You
if it
look
goes
like
both
Dracula.
ways.
Yeah.
Only if it goes both ways.
Would you be open?
I just did my bloods. I might have them. People just told me.
You have them and they're looking good?
Yeah.
I'll have to get mine done and then I'll send it across, and Tash can do the same too if she wants to.
All right, well, cool.
It'd be cool to compare it. But
I think that would give
again,
us a good container to compare what's really going on.
But
You're
again,
saying you can thrive.
No, but I'm just
They're
trying to
saying
say
they
that
can
this
thrive.
would be very poor evidence for anybody to look at both
No, well,
ways.
you're a living example. You're preaching
Yeah, absolutely.
what you're
But
saying.
from the perspective of science, let's say mine was much better than his, or vice versa. Even if mine was better than Chafee's, I wouldn't say that's good evidence.
No,
That's why we look at high quality evidence.
It would just be for interest, really. But
Yeah.
there is one study that actually did a large population examination between what we are talking about from a nutrition standpoint, which is whole food, meat, animal-based diet, a whole food, plant-based diet, which is the Maasai and the Akikuyu, their neighbors back in the 1920s, culminated in 1930, I think, published in 1931. As an examination done by the British. It took multiple years. They looked at thousands and thousands and thousands of different people and all sorts of different aspects. So the Maasai traditionally would eat milk, blood from the cattle, and meat. The women would eat more milk and some meat and blood, and the warrior caste men would eat a lot more blood and a lot more meat. And then the Akikuyu, who were alive at the same time, in the same area, the same conditions, and interbred with the Maasai, so similar genetic populations, they were largely plant-based. The men eating a lot more grains and millet seeds, and the women eating both grains, but also a wider range of leafy greens and things like that. And the Maasai actually had started including some grains at that point as well, whereas traditionally they wouldn't have, and that's continued on in the last century, and they've actually gotten worse from a health perspective. They looked at their health, they looked at official records at hospitals, they looked at clinics, but they also, because obviously not everyone has access to these, they went from village to village to village to village to village with doctors and checking and examining for different health outcomes. They found that the Maasai were far and away more healthy. They were on average, the adult male Maasai were on average 5 inches taller, 23 pounds heavier of lean body mass, 50% stronger, better dentition, better teeth development, facial development, and much healthier. So they had a stratified health of health outcomes. The Akikuyu men were the least healthy. The Akikuyu women were more healthy. They had a bit more of a diverse vegetarian diet. The Maasai women were healthier still, or far healthier. And the Maasai men were the healthiest out of that whole population. They had more meat and blood because they had to fight lions with sticks to defend their cattle. They looked at a prison population at the time between the Maasai and the Akikuyu, and they found the Maasai were very nutritionally replete and that the Akikuyu were not. And they found that the Akikuyu had multiple nutritional deficiencies. Now, I'm sure that they didn't know about all the different nutrients that we know about now, so they couldn't replace all of them, but they replaced the ones that they saw, and that didn't actually improve their health outcomes and their infectious disease rates and all these sorts of things, which were much higher. It wasn't until they replaced some of the plants with meat, actually gave them meat, that their health started to improve from that point of view. So that was a very good study because we're comparing the two populations that we're talking about. And even when you're replacing the nutrients and supplements, and granted they didn't necessarily know all the supplements we know about now, they still didn't improve their health all the way. So that's a better study. It's still not good, still not great, but at least it's comparing it to populations that we're discussing. And then you look at later studies looking at the health of the Maasai in the 70s. They started developing more heart disease. Not a single mention of heart disease in the Maasai.
Anthony and Sanjeev, when it comes to nutrition in grain-fed cows, factory farmed versus grass-pastured, is there a difference in nutrition in these animals? Is there any studies that you've heard of?
No, it's not even studies. I mean, it's just you have independent sort of labs testing these things, and certainly in some cases, I mean, I don't know of any studies looking at grass-fed and finished or generally raised sort of practices in general, looking at a lot of these things, but I do know individual ranchers who have sent their beef off for examination, or their eggs off for examination. And you can compare this to the USDA averages that they have for the average sort of thing. And yeah, there's
So a lot of the time you were comparing plant-based versus to grass-fed, the best sort of premium meats that are out in the field eating grass versus a factory farm eating, you said it was waste that wouldn't even be eaten. Surely the animal would have very little nutrition.
It's waste for us. Well, you can't. It's just fiber, right? So we can't.
I heard it was like sawdust, cotton meal, soy, corn, just the scraps. But still farmed.
It's basically the body of the plant as opposed to the grain.
To the leftovers.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that we don't have a use for it, and so we sell it to farmers to feed.
Yeah, the majority of the meat that we see in supermarkets like Woolworths, Spud, Shed, Coles is all factory farmed crap, so to speak.
It's not crap, but it does have less micronutrients than a grass-fed and finished, regeneratively raised cow would be, because you can be grass-fed and finished and not regeneratively raised. It's actually not as nutritious as the regenerative process.
Yeah.
Because when you're moving animals around as if they're migrating around an area, it actually is better for the soil.
Would you be for closing down factory farms, like completely, due to obviously
If we could, I mean, the thing is that you wouldn't be able to do it overnight. But yeah, I don't like the idea of especially like pigs and things like that. It's horrible.
Yeah.
A lot of these things, like these big, massive mills, are just sort of stuck in these little pens and stuff. That's a terrible existence. I don't agree with that. And so I'm 100% on their side on that. Yeah. I think that you can do this in better ways that are better for the animal and still provide us optimal nutrition. And while some people can do very well, eating predominantly, if not exclusively, plants, as long as they take supplements, not everyone can. And we have a lot of patients who get very sick. The vast majority of my followers on YouTube and Instagram were vegans and vegetarians at one point in their health. Steadily got worse and worse and worse until they finally said, okay, this is a problem. I need to.
And they were trying things like supplementation and
everything. Yeah. And so I have these stories every day, but literally the vast majority.
Is there a genetic component? Like some people can be vegan, some people can't. Is there like any difference in people's?
Yeah, well, very interesting. Yeah, so I mean, yes, there would be people that would genetically be better able to do that. There was a guy named what's his name? Anyway, he does a lot of genetic testing, things like that. And he said that. He said that there's a percentage of people that just cannot be vegan because of these certain enzymes that they can't break down certain things as well as others. But even just the example that I used earlier of carnitine. Carnitine is considered a non-essential amino acid, but that's not true. It is an essential amino acid for 30% of humanity. That's a lot of people. So that's 1/3 nearly of the population of Earth cannot make their own carnitine to a sufficient supply.
But you can buy that, by the kilo. That's what.
That's sort of supplementation, right? But that's the thing is.
What's the issue with that? If those 30% of people need to just take the supplement,
I don't have good. Yeah, so I don't have a problem with supplementation. First of all, we just like a British probably didn't know of all the things you need to supplement with back in the 20s. We probably don't now either. I mean, there are studies that come out that there are likely thousands of essential micronutrients in red meat that we don't even have names for. So that example I gave with the elemental diet, where it's a shake, so all the macro micros that we know of, I have patients that go on these things, and they say they can make it about 3-4 weeks and then start feeling really unwell because it's obviously missing something that we don't know about. But then they go on a just a meat diet, their Crohn's stays in remission, their rheumatoid arthritis stays in remission, they're losing weight, they're reversing their diabetes, and they're feeling better. We have that in clinical trials.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with clients too as a nutritionist that have done the exact same plant-based with the plant-based alternative instead.
Yeah,
so you could do it either or.
Well, but the thing is, well, certainly if you're eliminating processed crap and sugar and all these sorts of other things that we would all agree that's not good, that you're going to improve. And a lot of people, that's enough. But I have a lot, and both have a lot of patients that have been whole food, plant-based, not eating the processed garbage, and are still getting sick. And then you remove the plants, and then you're better. So the problem is it's not just nutrition.
It's an elimination diet. That can be done both ways.
Yeah, but you can't eliminate all the plants on a plant-based diet, and sometimes we'll need that. And so,
but often in an elimination case, it's often maybe one or a few plant foods that could have been triggering the issues, right?
Potentially.
So that's why removing it all, you might see some benefits, but you might have just removed that one needle in the haystack.
Yeah, and
so it's not saying that all plant foods are bad.
But some people can't add anything back in. Some people, even when they've had pork that's been factory farmed, because they're being fed things that they're not designed to eat either, they're not able to filter out these different toxins, and they have a much higher proportion of linoleic acid than they would normally. They get autoimmune flares and sick from eating that, so they can't even do that. So there are people that are actually very sensitive, and it's not as uncommon as people may believe. We see this quite a lot. And so if you can get that, and you can be healthy eating a plant-based diet or using supplements and all these sorts of things, I have no problem with that. So the thing is, I don't have a moral argument. I'm saying that everyone has to eat this way. I don't think that. I think that this is just something that is necessary for many people, and that we should at least understand this about nutrition side of things. I think the ethical and moral side of things is a very important topic and discussion. My main issue is, as a doctor, what is going to help my patients? And so if I have a patient that wants to be plant-based, great, I'm going to support them as much as I can. But if they're having health issues and they're having problems and they're having autoimmunity, and I can see that they're doing a very well-structured, well-designed plant-based diet with all these supplements, something else needs to change. You need to start eliminating these things out. And I tell them, look, if you want to start including things back in, give it 30 days, wash this stuff out of your system, and you try adding things back in, that's fine if they want to do that. Quite often when they do, they don't feel as good. They say, I actually feel best when I'm only eating meat. And so that's my main thing. It's just about the health. And we have to, again, look at things from a moral and ethical point of view down the line as well. Is it moral and ethical to subject a child to autism when it didn't need to before, that its brain doesn't develop properly, and now they have permanent brain damage for the rest of their life?
Is there direct evidence that links plant-based diet to autism?
So there is that study from Texas A&M that showed the carnitine deficiency. So the thing is that that's not saying that a plant-based diet causes that. That's saying that carnitine deficiency can cause that. And
it's a commonality of a link.
So
but it could be a lot of things combined,
right? You would see this more in a vegan and vegetarian population because they're not taking in foodstuffs that contain carnitine. Now, if you knew that your kid was carnitine deficient, could you supplement with carnitine? Sure. Are they getting that from an animal source? Probably. So it wouldn't be technically vegan, but you could technically do that. But that is.
Is there a difference in development of a child's brain having carnitine in a supplement versus an animal-based product?
I don't know if there's ever been a study on that, but the main thing is just having carnitine. But the thing is that obviously when you're eating whole foods, which is for both making, it's the good thing to do is eat whole foods. You get a lot of other things with the carnitine, and when you're eating meat, you're not bringing in other things as well. And the ketogenic diet is the most rigorously studied diet in the world. It's really the only one. Yeah, experimental, randomized controlled trials, interventional trials, meta-analyses of randomized controlled trials, all these other sorts of things, and showing, for looking at specific health outcomes and markers. It would show massive benefit from this. And so you could probably do things with a vegetarian approach to a ketogenic diet. It's going to be much more difficult. Yeah. And those studies don't really exist for these health outcomes. So they're generally high-fat, meat-based ketogenic diets are showing these beneficial health outcomes in experimental trials, including with autism. And there are treatment groups around the world. There are papers that are published in the literature going back 10 years or so, talking about how a ketogenic diet is a very good treatment modality for autism, and there are people that are using this and affecting this in their patient population. all over the world now, and there are people that are doing this, just coming across this on their own right and doing it and finding as a brand, they improved massively. Harvard professor of psychiatry, Chris Palmer, has a whole chapter in his book Brain Energy discussing this, that a leading cause of autism is misdevelopment and misproduction of mitochondria in the brain, which makes your neurons not develop properly and not function properly. Carnitine is essential for mitochondrial function. And so if you don't make carnitine or don't make an insufficient supply and you're not getting it from your diet, as you're being raised on a vegan vegetarian diet, you're going to have a paucity of carnitine and you are going to suffer from this. But also eating carbohydrates, having high insulin, that suppresses autophagy and mitophagy, the replacement and production of mitochondria as well as other cells. And so when you do that, you suppress your body's ability to make more mitochondria and you suppress the function and action of those mitochondria. When you go into a ketogenic diet, studies have shown that in 3-4 months you have 4 times the number of mitochondria and they're 4 times as effective. So in children, if you can put them on this sort of diet early on, you can get the carnitine and all the essential nutrients that we may not even know about. So generally you have to eat meat because we don't know about all these things. And we're assuming that some things are non-essential like carnitine when actually they are essential for a third of the population. We're seeing people reverse autism clinically and experimentally in study populations.
Reverse autism, like level 3, like intense autism?
Yeah, and it can at least improve it dramatically.
Wow.
And so can it undo all the damage of misdevelopment? Depends on how early you get it.
Yeah.
But
Anthony, if I mean to conclude, if you could just say one thing to Tash and Jack that you wish they just understood beyond all the layers of beliefs, ideologies, or whatever layers are there from seeing the information you're trying to communicate, what would that message be? Just a summary of that message.
Well, I think I'd just like to communicate the common ground that we have. Like I completely sympathize with your point of view. That's a nasty thing to do. I agree it's a nasty thing to do. I don't disagree with that. We're going back and forth, but I do agree with you. It's horrible that animals have to die for us to live. But I do think that we do need to eat them. I do think that is essential, and I do think that it's especially essential for optimal health. We can suffer, we can be ill, but I don't think that we can be optimal. I don't think that everyone can be optimal, and I don't think it's moral or ethical to subject that to children, not have them develop properly, and not have elderly people and people that are adults age ungracefully and get Alzheimer's and dementia and horrible diseases and die decades early after decades of disease. I don't think that's moral or ethical either. The main thing that I just want to sort of impart is that plants aren't just nutritional sources. They don't want to die either, and they have robust defenses, and even edible plants have extremely robust defenses that are toxic in nature and that they can harm us. So we're not just getting the nutrients, and as Sanjeev said, they're not all bioavailable. We can't access all of these things as well. They have anti-nutrients that block out the absorption and utilization of different nutrients as well. There are studies showing that giving people spinach in the 1950s, which had a high calcium content, actually lowered people's calcium levels because calcium wasn't bioavailable. And then they had oxalates which stripped out the available calcium in their serum. So we need to take these things in context. And if people want to include plants in their diet, I'm all for that. I'm all about, I'm very libertarian in the sense that I want people to be able to make decisions in their own life that they think is best for them. So I don't want people eating a carnivore diet because I eat a carnivore diet. I just want them to understand that it's not harmful, it doesn't cause disease, it doesn't cause heart disease, it doesn't cause cancer, and that the plants can have harmful components. And if you're okay with that, and your body tolerates that, and you enjoy that, by all means do it. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for many of my patients. And so, from a medical point of view, from just a health and nutrition point of view, I think that it is important to include meat in the diet and to try to eliminate out plants for some people because they can be toxic to those people, even on a very well-controlled vegan diet.
So something off topic, Anthony. What do you bench press?
I don't do like 1 rep max.
What's that?
Like I don't just go for like a maximum.
What do you do for reps?
Sorry, body weight? Well, I do body weight stuff. I don't, I've only sort of just got back into the gym recently. So I think that well, it's not really fair. I'm a professional athlete, so it's a teenager.
It would have been good to have Richard on. I think he does like 200 kilos for reps. He's a monster. He's a fucking monster.
What are you benching at the moment? I'm just curious. Otherwise, I want to be able to ask you later.
Yeah.
I don't.
But I would rep probably. Well, I think. I haven't really been in the gym very recently, but
Just give me an answer, man. What do you rep?
I'm just trying to think the last time I did. So I did. What was it? 15 pounds. What was that in kilos? It's 320s on each side, right? So that's like 140, something like that. So I've repped that like 6 times, something like that.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's great. If you guys had one thing you could say to Dr. Anthony and Dr. Sanjeev, and what would it be? Like a message that they truly they get you, like you guys both just connect and you get it. Like what would it be?
I'm going to give it to Tash, who's good at this kind of stuff.
You got the flames.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, it just seems like you are misinformed in terms of like the death count versus eating a plant-based diet and eating an animal-based diet. And it sounds like you want to do the right thing, but, and I truly believe that your morals do align with veganism, because I have no doubt that you would say that you're against animal abuse, and you admitted that murdering animals is a horrible thing. And I think you just need to realize that it's completely unnecessary if you want to, stop being a part of animal abuse and murder. Veganism is a moral obligation in my eyes, because trillions and trillions of non-human animals are brutally murdered every year for human food consumption, and that extends beyond farmed animals and obviously all the ocean animals that are murdered, for seafood. It extends to wild animals as well, because animal agriculture is the leading cause of species extinction. Ocean dead zones, pollution, and so many atrocities that are happening to this planet. It is a complete rights violation. And in 2024, I truly believe that every human on this planet can live on a plant-based diet, and I believe they can thrive. And I know that you don't agree with that, but even if we couldn't thrive, I still believe that veganism is a moral obligation, because we can live healthily without eating animals. I've been vegan for 7 years now, and I've never felt better in myself, and I know that there are millions of vegans out there that agree with me, and the leading dietetic and nutrition associations confirm that too. The science does show that.
Would you sit on the same table as Anthony and share a meal with him if he was eating a steak and you were eating?
Absolutely not. I will not sit down with a dead murder victim in front of me.
Wouldn't sit down with someone in front of somebody.
I thought I
eating
closed
a
on
human
a
body.
very positive sense, and then it's just kind of going haywire.
Would you
again.
sit down in front of somebody eating a human body?
It
Comfortably?
depends on the situation.
No, would you comfortably?
Like if I'm on an island and we're both naked, and
Just
we got
like at a
nothing to
restaurant
eat,
next
like
door.
yeah, I'd do it.
No, but at a restaurant next
That's
door.
a pretty wild restaurant, man. Like
Yeah, but would you?
Yeah, I
Yes.
probably would.
You would?
I probably would.
So you'd condone eating humans?
No, I'd watch them.
You'd watch
I wouldn't
them.
eat it.
No,
I'd
but
watch
you'd be
it.
happy to participate.
I'd be curious. I'd be the same camera setup I have, and I'd be questioning them with the same.
Sure,
sort.
I would be curious
I'd be like,
too.
what makes you want to eat this human being?
That's exactly our position with
But
non-humans.
people do that in Papua New Guinea,
Papua
in
New
certain
Guinea.
areas as well. I mean, there's still cannibalism.
Well,
Yeah,
to
it's
Papua New
fucked
Guinea
up.
next, huh?
I'm actually
Yeah.
on Papua New Guinea.
You go to Papua New Guinea?
Possibly, but yeah.
When is this?
Oh, it's not set up yet, but
Very
I
nice.
was invited on a research trip there
Very nice.
to study that.
That's what you had to
Wait, so can I ask Jack and Tash, what do you guys do to thrive? What are the main things a vegan has to do to thrive and be optimal, in your opinion, and obviously your personal experience?
Oh, just like the basic stuff, man. Like, make sure you're getting adequate nutrition, which we are. We can do the blood works and all that kind
Are
of
the
stuff.
substances that you take, that you have to take?
Yeah,
as a
so
vegan?
beef oil would be the only main one that we take.
That's it.
Yeah.
Will you take carnitine after listening to it?
No,
Like you
because
said?
I don't need it.
I don't think they need it,
No.
really. I mean, they would have had a lot of problems.
But then, yeah, exercise, sleep well, meditation's pretty awesome, and yeah, hang around good people. That's what we do to be healthy and happy.
Great.
Amazing, thank you.
You only take B12 supplements.
Yeah, maybe a D3 in winter if needed. Other than that, nothing else is really essential.
No,
That's what you
vitamin
take.
K2,
Sorry?
vitamin K2,
No,
zinc.
no, don't eat it. Yeah, all good that way.
Right, guys, thank you so much for coming on. All your personal channels will be in the description, so guys, like and subscribe, and let me know what you guys want. Do you guys want a round 2? Any information, any input you want, drop it in the comment box. Thank you so much for this beautiful team. Thank you so much for this beautiful team for coming on and taking the time out and having this conversation, and these two legends over here.